Welcome back. President Obama reacted to Mr. Netanyahu's speech on Iran by saying it offered nothing new. But even some Democrats are conceding the Israeli prime minister's critiques have added to an already heavy burden of persuasion on the White House. Former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell was the chairman of the Mitchell Commission on the Arab-Israeli conflict back in 2000. He was also U.S. Special Envoy for Northern Ireland from 1995 to 2001. And it is an honor to have you on the program today.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you. So the aim of the negotiations is to persuade Iran to restrain its nuclear program in exchange for relief from these sanctions. Do you believe the deal that is being talked about today would in fact do that?
Well, we don't know what the deal is, and we'll have to wait until an agreement is reached. If one is reached, it's still about 50-50 before we can make a final judgment on it. I do think that the Prime Minister helped himself in his re-election campaign in his appearance before Congress. Obviously, I don't know what the ultimate effect will be there. I think he also has he's emboldened the opponents to the President and the Congress, given them, I think, some substance and assurance, making it more difficult for the President. But in the end, it will depend mostly upon the verification provisions in the agreement that we're about to reach, that are about 50-50 that will be reached.
Well, I mean, wasn't it important, though, for him to embolden the critics? I mean, putting his re-election aside for a moment, you talk to even the Arab nations in the surrounding areas who are all concerned by the fact that Iran does support terrorist groups like Hezbollah and has been continuing this enrichment of uranium, which ultimately will lead to a nuclear bomb.
There has been a long-standing, centuries-old animosity between Persians and Arabs. There's nothing new about that. When I was in the region and met with the Arab leaders, the first thing they said was, you've got to attack Iran. They would like us to bomb Iran. That's been the case for a very long time. So in this circumstance, their interests align with that of Israel. They don't ordinarily, but they do in this case. So there's absolutely nothing new about that. There was one report that, which I don't know if it's true or not, it was reported that when the hangman placed the noose around Saddam Hussein's neck, the last words Saddam spoke were, "Damn the Persians." So that's a conflict of ancient origins, been going on for a long time. Absolutely nothing new that the Gulf Arabs are opposed to the Persians, who are also Shia, while the Arab states are Sunni. So there's a double edge to that conflict, and would like the United States to bomb Iran.
What about these sanctions? Let's talk about the idea that there are a fair amount of people in Congress who would like to increase the sanctions against Iran.
Yes. Almost everyone agrees that the reason Iran is at the table is because the sanctions are having a crippling effect on their economy. The reason the sanctions are effective is in large part due to the fact that they are universal. These are not unilateral U.S. sanctions. China, Russia, Britain, Germany, France, the countries joining with us in the negotiations, are enforcing the sanctions as well. The United States Senate could increase sanctions to the sky, but if those countries don't go along, the sanctions go from effective to ineffective. And that's what will happen. These 5 countries are in the negotiations with us. If they, with us, reach an agreement with Iran, they're not going to join the sanctions, join the Senate and the Congress in upping the sanctions, and the sanctions will effectively be undermined. So those who argue, well, let's have the Congress pass a law increasing sanctions, ignore the reality of the situation that if the sanctions become unilateral, they become ineffective.
This is a very, very important point. Yeah. So what is the best way to get Iran to slow down this enrichment process?
Iran is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Agreement. Under that agreement, the parties, one of which is Iran, have the right to use nuclear power for peaceful purposes. The Ayatollah and the president of Iran say that Iran doesn't want a nuclear weapon. The problem is that the actions of their government contradict their assertions. There are today 9 nuclear powers in the world. There are dozens of countries that have the capability of producing nuclear weapons who voluntarily refrain from doing so because they know it's in their best interest not to make nuclear weapons. Iran should be in that category. The question really is, do the leaders of Iran have the common sense to understand that their national interest lies in not making nuclear weapons, although they should be able to produce nuclear power for peaceful uses?
And you think they understand that?
The question, well, I think they understand it, but these people have judgments based on ideologies
right.
and other factors that they don't judge them in the same context that we do. That's the real challenge. And I agree there's a danger of they getting a weapon to produce proliferation. The problem is rejecting a reasonable agreement,
right.
even if it's not absolutely 100% perfect, is more likely to produce a nuclear-armed Iran than less likely.
Senator, great to have you on the show today. We'll be right back. Senator George Mitchell.